Sponsored by New Orleans Distillers, creators of fine spirits and liqueurs. Through dedication to science, art, and passion, blends of tradition and flavor emerge. For you, always locally crafted. New Orleans Distillers, classically Southern.
Tonight, Amazon's Jeff Bezos sends his final letter. Bernie Madoff takes his final breath. And the bad news, Delta Airlines takes away the middle seat. All that and more tonight on Wall Street Wrap-Up. And welcome to Wall Street Wrap-Up, and I hope your week went well. I'm Andre Laborde. Our goal is bringing Wall Street to your street for today, Friday, April the 16th, 2021, and to get you ready for the events ahead for next week. Now, in case you haven't heard, the real estate market, it's hot. Single-family homes are selling fast, and since vaccinations are up and COVID is down, people are not just wanting to get out of the house, they want to move to a new one. We'll be talking with the president and CEO of Latter & Blum, Lacey Merrick Conway, in just a moment. But first, how did the markets do this week? Well, the Dow Jones Industrial Average ended the week at 34,202. That was up 155 points for the day and up just over 1% for the week. The S&P 500 closed today at 4,185, up 15 points for the day and up 1.3% for the week. And finally, the NASDAQ. They finished the week at 14,052, up 13.5 points for the day and up just over 1% for the week. The indexes all closed at session highs for the day. The Dow Jones and the S&P 500 set record closes also for the day. And by the way, Bitcoin, it crossed $60,000 for the first time this week. Well, let's get to our guest. Lacey Conway is the president and CEO of Latter & Blum Realtors. Lacey, welcome to Wall Street Wrap-Up.
Andre, thank you. Great to be here today.
Thank you. You know, it's perfect timing right now because these days you can't pick up a newspaper or watch the news without hearing about the booming residential real estate market is hot, hot, hot. Is it in all sectors of the United States or in just certain ones?
Andre, from what we're seeing, it is very much in all parts of the United States. You know, and I just want to tell you this story because it really illustrates how wild the market has been. There was a story, I think CNN put it in the paper, about a home right outside of Washington, D.C. that had a total of 88 offers. 76 were all cash. The home sold for 70% above asking price. They were asking $275,000 and it sold for $460,000. 15 of those offers were submitted sight unseen. So this is the stuff, it's like I'm making up a story. It seems so wild, but it certainly has affected all parts of the United States.
Lacey, do you see this continuing throughout all of 2021?
You know, I could safely say I definitely see it continuing through probably Q3 of 21. What's been so interesting, I'd say, for the real estate world in general is normally we talk about seasons or, you know, for us, it's spring season gets very active. And right when COVID hit, I think our initial reaction was, well, you know, maybe summer will be our spring. And it just seems like this has continued. It's been like a continuous spring season well into Q1 of 21. So it's certainly hard to predict when it will stop. But I can see it continuing, you know, well through this year, maybe coming to a bit of a tightening up towards the last quarter.
I'm thinking of low interest rates, or people are just so tired of being locked down in their own homes or in one location, or the vaccine. So I don't want to put words in your mouth. Why do you think this is going on?
It seems like there's this frenzy over, you know, where do you want to be? Now that you can pretty much work from home, people are more willing to drive a little farther. You know, they want privacy. They want even multi-generational entertaining spaces. They're wanting more yard. They're wanting a pool. It seems like those things that were once thought of as a deal breaker are becoming the deal makers. People are good with the extra space. So it's all of these things fueling that. It's just home has taken on a whole new role. I mean, not only is it where you live, you're raising your kids, it's where you eat and sleep, but it's your gym, it's your school. It's taken on many different forms.
I saw a recent poll that said that 2 out of 5, 20%, of those homeowners are thinking about moving within the next 12 months. And they also said 39% of those 18 to 35 are thinking about moving as well. Now, first off, the 18 to 35, because at 18, I don't know, unless you sold an app to Google or Apple Computer, or just had you're the CEO of a company that's going IPO. I don't know how many 18-year-olds there are, but still 39% are thinking of the same thing. Have you seen something like that? Yeah.
And traditionally, I say millennials, maybe say under 40 are such a large component of the buying group that is out there in the United States. There are so many factors that are right for, call it, first-time home buyers or those, thinking about making a jump into real estate. But I will say, Andre, there are parts of it that can be discouraging. The environment right now, everything is so fast paced. We have a lot of cash out there, people making cash offers, offers sight unseen. It can be very intimidating and discouraging, for those that are just getting geared up to jump in and buy real estate, to go, oh my gosh, the water's moving so quickly. You had to be prepared for that.
Are mortgage companies working with prospective, especially maybe first-time home buyers?
I would say I think banking has gotten tighter with lending and what the regulations and what you qualify for. But I do think that obviously banks do a great job of making sure that first-time home buyers are prepared, as do real estate agents. And there's a lot of help out there to encourage people to know what they're getting into before they jump into real estate. But and I think one of the questions that seems to come up with the real estate market, is this going to end up like 2008? Is this going to be a bubble?
You stole one of my questions. That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm glad you're bringing that up. Go ahead.
Yes. And why I would say I don't think it's going to be this bubble. I mean, surely there's a point where it will deflate a little bit, but I don't see this explosion. I do think banks have learned lessons, and I think there were lessons taken from 2008 that everyone's a little more reasonable about. It's percent financing, all over the place. Banks have tightened up on what you can qualify for.
And I think also because of, just like following up what you're saying, banks were at one time doing they call the no-doc loans or the liar loans. You mentioned a little while ago about how what people were looking for in homes. I had read there was an article in the Wall Street Journal where they said people are looking now for home offices.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even the idea that homes that say had 4 bedrooms, 5 bedrooms, where people would shy away from that, I think now they're saying, oh, great, look, I can convert that bedroom into my office. I know people get tired of using their laundry or some other room to function as their office. So it's been a great opportunity even for people that are wanting to downsize. There is more of an appetite from the public to go ahead and take on a larger house and certainly try to find a way to make it a home office.
Do you find an equal number of those that sell want to downsize as equal to those that want to have maybe a smaller, want to go larger, or is there more going one way than the other?
It's a great question. And I think it's probably both. I just think when you have the opportunity to sell your house, but people have different motivations and things that they value in the house. Maybe the house, they wanted a larger yard. They wanted to be a little farther out from the city. They really wanted the privacy, or now they've decided to have their parents live in a back house or a different layout to the house. But certainly, there is such an appetite for all types of real estate at the moment. It's really been fascinating.
What about going from the inner city to the suburbs? At one time, that was a big thing. People wanted to leave the city. Is that still the same way you found?
And I think it really, I feel like the effects of that are seen on a different scale depending on where you are, in the U.S. Obviously New York City has seen a dramatic change in people saying, oh my gosh, I don't want to live on top of somebody else. I want to move out to, the New Jersey shore, places that maybe the cost of living is a little bit less and you're not so on top of each other. I think for greater New Orleans, I feel like, say, condo sales have been down a bit just because that's not as appealing at the moment as having a house, call it on the North Shore, or having your space and being, more in nature or a little more spread out. For us, I don't think we feel that to the extreme that other parts of the United States do. maybe one interesting thing, and not that U-Haul is the de facto, this is what's happening in the United States, but when you see who's doing one-way trips, who's moving where, you notice that they're moving away from those the New York, the San Francisco, the really the really pricey cities that have a wonderful wonderful quality of life in a way, but they're coming more to the southern states where it's warm. Cost of living is a bit less. The big winners there have been obviously Texas, Tennessee. Austin, Dallas. I mean, you're just certain cities are really feeling such a kind of renaissance. People are moving there now. Places that people originally are maybe thinking about where to start a family or where your job is has changed so much that now you've pretty much opened up the whole United States to, where do you think you're going to be happy?
Mm-hmm. I know you brought up about the U-Haul type of measurement, and for California, if you want to take a U-Haul away from California, it's expensive. But if you want to bring a U-Haul to California, they'll almost give it to you because they need them. For doing it.
Yes.
And today, with the working at home, I know a lot of the tech industry, they're able to do a lot of the work from home industries too. So, like you brought up about New York, California, I would say is also in that same arena. That there's
Absolutely.
Would you also think about, when it comes to personal property taxes, there are states that are very high personal property tax states, and there's, I think, about 9 states in the United States that have no personal property taxes. I mean, give you an example, like Texas and Florida have no personal property taxes. Illinois, California, New York, very high. Mississippi is being voted on right now in their legislature, which it might do. Do you think it would help Louisiana if the Louisiana legislature would consider that?
I absolutely, and I feel like if Mississippi is to change their tax situation, I would feel sorry for Louisiana because I do think we would lose out. If you again, when you watch where people are moving to, all of those cities and states that we've mentioned are the ones that have made it much more of an incentive to live your life there. So it'll be very interesting to watch and see what happens. But I would encourage Louisiana to give it a hard look.
It was brought up in the legislature, but it was voted down. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it didn't even get out of committee. But it may be time, like I agree with you, if Mississippi, and it looks like it will be passing because the governor of Mississippi has already said that if it gets out of the legislature, he will sign the bill. So that makes it something
very
for...
interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, because we're talking about real estate, even the Gulf Coast has seen such a resurgence. So many people are wanting to live on the coast. It's a nice lifestyle. You're not too far away from New Orleans, so I can definitely see how Mississippi would have a huge win.
There's a large, also, Lacey. There's a large REITs, real estate investment trusts, private equity firms like Blackstone and such that buy large blocks of single-family residential homes. Do you find that in this area, in the Louisiana, Mississippi Gulf Coast, that...
Andre, I really don't. I mean, I don't hear about too many. That would probably, my answer is no. I don't hear about that very much in our area. But it's interesting to note too. I know even there were some articles written about foreign investors buying single-family homes. So, I mean, this is definitely an interesting sector to watch, for sure.
Do you find companies like Zillow and maybe others that are springing up, is that a help to you, or is that more of a competitor for you?
There's actually a word for that. It's people that don't like Zillow, they're called Zaters. I'm not sure if I put myself in that category quite yet, but real estate, there is so much technology in real estate, even over the last 2 years. So many companies now have the capability. You've heard of Matterport that the commercial groups use and even residential will use. All those technologies are here to stay, as far as showing houses and having those capabilities. And I definitely think, obviously COVID has pushed that to where agents are much more comfortable using that technology and making it easier for people to do virtual walkthroughs, seeing the build out of the house without having actually to be in the house. I think all of those are ultimately helping the consumer. So I don't think anybody can argue that that's a bad thing.
Yeah, and also when you add that to companies like DocuSign or other things, or even like the way we're talking right now, the days of meeting at your friendly real estate attorney for an active sale maybe going by way too.
I think there's a huge focus, on just, easing the pain points of this transaction. It's complicated. There are a lot of moving parts, but there's a lot of technology and a lot of money at the moment invested in making this whole real estate process, closing the deal, as seamless as possible. So I can only see it speeding up.
If just joining us right now, we're talking with Lacey Conway. Lacey is the president and CEO of Ladder & Bloom. We're going to take a break right now. We'll be right back, but don't go away. Lacey, we're back right now, and for those of you that just joined us, we've been talking with Lacey Conway. She is the president and CEO of Ladder & Bloom, and we're talking about the residential real estate boom. That, in one word, hot. Lacey, talk to me a little bit about the commercial real estate market. Before the pandemic, there was a lot of companies, I would imagine, especially maybe in the California area, maybe Austin, Texas, I'm thinking of the tech areas, that were getting more commercial property than they needed, thinking they were going to grow into it. Well, now with this pandemic, are you seeing that companies may be wanting to downsize more, or are they looking to fill back up what they didn't have with people the last 12 months?
It's so interesting, and I think the conversation on office space is going to be one that we might have, well through 2021. And I know that there are passionate advocates on both sides. To me, the trend is much more of, yes, people have taken on a bunch of office space. Big companies, J.P. Morgan, or these tech companies that you've mentioned. There is a huge market for to sublease this space. I mean, I think everybody's realizing, wow, we really can get work done from home. There are a lot of people that really want to work remotely and prefer to work remotely. And I know many companies, you mentioned Zillow. I mean, I think companies are basically taking the stance of saying, we're going to embrace this and go ahead and let employees work from home. I think it is an evolving conversation as we watch, productivity, or how does work really happen as we go forward with half the task force working at home and half in the office. I certainly find that there are people that will say, I need to go back to the office. I work better at the office. I've got to have that camaraderie. I'm more centered at the office. So it's definitely interesting because you've got two sides of this that feel very strongly. But I definitely think companies are rethinking the office space.
Lacey, especially like a business like yours, I mean, it's important to have a salesperson, an account representative that be able to know their clients and their clients know them. And if you've been established for a while, that's one thing. You've got a reputable business. But if you're just joining the market, you're wanting to meet those people, and there's no better than doing it face to face.
Exactly. I mean, in real estate, absolutely, is such a relationship business. And you're right. I mean, once people know you, they know you, like you, trust you. But yes, it's so important to get out there and meet face to face and really build up that trust, which does seem hard to do through a camera when you haven't met somebody and you're not really sure how they work.
Sure. Lacey, well, we're getting short of time, but I've got so many more things that I want to talk to you about. Well, how about right now that businesses that are just getting back to work are having trouble paying their landlords and having to, because they've been out of work, but unfortunately because of the commercial lease, the lease payments still continue. Are you able to see that our landlords being able to give some to be able to keep that lessee in that spot, or is it more of a problem?
Well, it is such a tough situation, and I feel like you can feel the pain on both sides, and I think for the most part, even say locally, we have, a lot of the owners of these apartment buildings call it mom and pop. They depend on that rental income to feed their families. So certainly pain on both sides of this situation. I think there's relief, on the way, and it's in the works. I just don't know how long that can sustain. It's certainly put a strain on that market. And the owners, like we've said, they have taxes, they have insurance, they have bills to pay as well. So certainly a lot of effort going towards a remedy there. But again, I just, it's kind of a slog. We got to get through it, but pain on both ends.
One more question. I mean, do you find our banks being more lenient to the landlords because they've got mortgages on their property? It's like you said, it's a trickle-down effect. The lessee pays the lessor pays the bank mortgage. But if the bank mortgage is hard on the lessor, then it has to go back up.
It's a scary topic, honestly, Andre, and I feel like even as the months go on and maybe towards the end of this year and into the following year, this is going to be a tough one. I know foreclosures, we've put a halt on that, but these are large issues that we can't keep kicking down. At some point, yes, the bank wants to be paid. And at some point, the owners of these buildings have to pay more of their bills. Everything seems to have been pushed down a bit and put on pause, but that is certainly a topic that we will have to address in the coming months.
True. Lacey, I've got a lot more questions, but unfortunately the clock doesn't stop. I hope you come back.
Thank you, Andre.
My thanks to Lacey Conway. Really appreciate it. Well, some other business items in the news this week. In his annual but final letter to shareholders this week, before he steps down as the CEO of Amazon, Jeff Bezos laid out a broad vision for the future of his company. Bezos pointed to the recent union election outcome at one of the Amazon warehouses in Alabama as an example of why the company needs to address changes and challenges within its workforce. Last week, Amazon secured enough votes to defeat unionizing at the location. Amazon has over 950,000 employees worldwide, and if the union would have secured a foothold in the Bessemer, Alabama warehouse location, that's where the vote occurred, they would have used this as a springboard to advance unionizing throughout the company. Jeff Bezos will step down as CEO in the third quarter of this year, turning over the job to Andy Jassy, head of Amazon's web services. Well, Jeff Bezos will become executive chairman of Amazon's board. Bernie Madoff, a one-time fixture on Wall Street who directed one of the largest financial frauds in U.S. history, died on Wednesday inside a federal prison hospital. Madoff was a one-time chairman of the NASDAQ stock market, and he shocked the world when he confessed his investment business was nothing more than a Ponzi scheme. He pleaded guilty in March of 2009 and was given a 150-year sentence. When the housing bubble hit in 2008 and more people needed withdrawals than they were depositing money into his fraudulent scheme, it soon became clear that the assets Madoff boasted of managing existed only on paper. Ultimately, a court-appointed trustee estimated Madoff took about $17 billion of company money throughout the scheme. Madoff had two sons who always said that they had nothing to do with the fraud operation. In fact, they were the ones who originally turned their father into the FBI when they learned of the scam. One son, Mark Madoff, committed suicide in 2010, and the other son, Andrew Madoff, died of cancer in 2014. Madoff's wife, Ruth, survived all three deaths and lives in Connecticut at this time. Well, a statement from the Bureau of Prisons on Wednesday said Madoff died at the Federal Medical Center in Butner, North Carolina. Bernie Madoff was 82 years old, and we'll be right back after this. And regulators in Massachusetts are seeking to pull the plug on Robinhood just as the booming app aims to go public in a blockbuster. The Massachusetts Securities Division escalates its battle against the startup yesterday by moving to revoke its broker-dealer license in the state. State regulators are accusing Robinhood of failing to properly account for fractional shares traded by their customers on its platform, and said the company continues to entice and induce inexperienced customers into the risky trading. This is just one more obstacle facing the company as it prepares to go public after filing for public trading last month. Robin Hood's PR department is now burning the midnight oil trying to recover from this jolt. Well, if you've got a question about finance or a comment about the show, we'd love to hear from you. You can write us at andre@wallstreetwrapup.info. Keep it pithy or concise, and we'd be glad to answer your questions. And now for a look ahead of what's ahead next week. But first, on this day, April 16th, back in 1955, a middle-aged milkshake salesman sold his first 15-cent hamburger and 10-cent French fries in Des Plaines, Illinois. Who is it? We'll have the answer in just a minute, so stay tuned. On this day, April the 16th, back in 1955, this middle-aged milkshake salesman sold his first 15-cent hamburger and 10-cent French fries in Des Plaines, Illinois. Who was it? The answer? Ray Kroc. He opened the first McDonald's franchise, and by the end of the day, McDonald's racked up $366.12 in sales. Today, there are over 39,200 McDonald's franchises, but the first one opened up today, April 16th, 1955. Well, Delta Airlines signaled the worst of the pandemic, which caused most not to board an airline, is now likely behind it. Delta anticipates that travel demand will continue to gain steam in the coming months, as more people begin getting vaccinations and interest in travel is returning. Delta is hoping their peak season of summer will bring back customers to their pre-pandemic times, and they stated that domestic leisure bookings are now at 85% levels from last year. Rivals American Airlines Group and United Airlines Holdings have also said bookings have strengthened, and their operations stopped losing cash in March of 2021, excluding debt. Now, Delta has said that they will begin selling and filling the middle seats as of May 1st of this year. Viacom-CBS said it will combine the journalistic and the business operations of CBS News and CBS television stations into one division. CBS News, where weekday mornings and evening programs are in third place and have long trailed ABC's Good Morning America and World News Tonight, as well as NBC's Today Show and NBC's Nightly News, CBS News' weekly evening broadcast is hosted by Norah O'Donnell. Well, join me next week when my guest will be the Chief Investment Officer at Equity Compass, Robert Hagstrom. Robert is also the author and just wrote a new book about Warren Buffett. That's next week. Well, that's our show, and we hope you've enjoyed it for Friday, April the 16th. Remember, you can follow us on Facebook and WYES.org. So thank you for joining us for Wall Street Wrap-Up. I'm Andre Laborde. Remember, money never sleeps. Good night.
Sponsored by New Orleans Distillers, creators of fine spirits and liqueurs. Through dedication to science, art, and passion, blends of tradition and flavor emerge. For you, always locally crafted. New Orleans Distillers, classically Southern.